Welcome to ReSounding, a podcast exploring the power of the arts in advocacy and in action. We talk with artists and activists, taking a deep dive into questions surrounding the causes of displacement, the strength and the vulnerability of people on the move, and the potential of the arts to shine a light on social injustice and impact people's lives for the better. This month, I was joined by Matthias Witt and Ayham Nabuti from the In.DI.E Music Project, supporting the career paths of musicians who have newly arrived in Germany. Matthias, Ayham, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Now, to begin with, can you please just describe and explain to us what was that music we've just been listening to?
You just heard a piece by Shan Devan on tabla, Cerebes Jajan on bouzuk or saz, and Luis Lorente on guitar, Mehmet Vefa Yamalak on daf, which is a musical dialogue between different cultures from India to Persia. You could say it like that.
Yeah. And can you explain to us what had brought those musicians together? Because this is the focus of the In.DI.E Music Project, right? They're bringing together musicians. Can you explain to us what it was that led to that performance?
Yeah, this certificate it's from the diverse musician. They live here in Rhine-Westphalia, and it's a diverse program and a whole of musicians coming from all the world. So in the end of program, we shoot to make a concert, like a few groups, and this group make a music dialogue. It was really amazing because this mixture between a lot a different culture. It was really amazing.
Yeah.
How you communicate between the instrument. It's not always to communicate with your words, but it's a communication with the instrument from the whole world. It was a little bit unique because this program, it was a new program from the musician. They came from the whole world or from different countries.
Yeah, they met during this certificate course. They were unfamiliar before, and they rehearsed on one weekend for this concert. Right, Ayham?
Yeah. It was just 2 days or two nights.
Yeah.
It was really intensive, but it was really amazing.
Wow.
Because you should be creative.
Yeah.
And this art from musician, it was really creative.
Yeah, and what I liked about it is that all these different cultures were represented in this group, and they made the best out of their cultures in this piece. But you can also hear them some kind of talking to each other, and in the end, they all joined back to the refrain, which is a nice picture for the thing what happened in this chorus and what we're centering in our project, bringing people together, which is not always easy. There might be arguments and stuff and misunderstandings, a lot of misunderstandings actually. But in the end, something amazing happens, just like in this piece. And on that day, I think we all had goosebumps.
And this was in 2019, is that right, that recording?
Yeah, that's right.
And can you explain to us how that now fits into the In.DI.E Music project as it's evolved?
The indie music itself is not directly a part of this certificate course. It's a separate project. And I think to explain it, it helps to answer two questions: where it came from, and the other question is where we are going. I think we might be able to get the audience a little idea of what we're doing. So, Ayham, if you allow me, I'll start with back then.
Yeah, please.
The project was founded back in 2017 as a reaction to all these very nice, welcoming projects for refugees. It was a direct reaction to the migration situation back in 2015. And there were all these artistic projects, a lot of music projects, especially working to help in the arrival process for refugees, especially from Syria. Just like Ayham, I think you were involved in some of these projects as well. Yeah, the Landesmusikakademie, which is our host, our administration, it's where the indie music project is based in, thought it's a good idea to help all these projects to qualify for their work with music methods and pedagogical approaches, new approaches like community music, and which was very helpful in all these projects to establish new ideas and new approaches to welcome these people. And back then, our project was not named Indie Music. The project was called Educational Measures in Music for Refugees, which is not a very attractive name, neither in English nor in German. But the focus was on people from Germany doing music with people not from Germany. And in the second year of the project, it all evolved very quickly to a project where people from everywhere met, like people with a refugee background, making music with other peoples with refugee background, and migrants or not migrant people. So there was this value of welcoming people with refugee background in these projects, participating directly, contributing, being in the lead of something was very important back at this point. So the focus changed very quickly from a project doing workshops, music workshops with people, working with people with migrant background, to working with migrants, working with non-migrants, and not labeling them as refugees anymore. And in 2020, there was this guy, Ayham. I met him during this certificate course, and he applied for a job inside our project back then, and then we relabeled it as indie music. So there's this interconnection between the certificate course and our indie music project.
I would like here to say it was really amazing time as I enjoyed this program. Now I can say it's really amazing if you just take a look how it's work at all. If you see what's happened in the academy, or what's happened when you work with Matthias. It's really amazing procedure, because he called this one, it's the work between two sides. It's not only for the migrant, but it's too for the other side. It's something like empowerment. If I say there is only a project for refugees or for migrant, it's not enough, because this procedure, it's work from both of sides. This process or this procedure need a lot of empowerment, or not help, but consultation. Where can I find this money? Where can I make my idea, my motivation? How can to work in my field? And there are really steps, because there is always a procedure to make your project, but it should be with a plan.
I just wanted to come back to the name. As you realize, it's a very complex project. How do you cut it short? And that's why we named it In.DI.E Music. It stands for IN, stands for Interculture. That's what we're aiming for. It's where it comes from, bringing people from different cultures together by social inclusion with music. The DI stands for diversity, which we're sensitive for. And of course, our main focus is on the intercultural part of diversity, but diversity is about much more, bringing people of different ages and sexes, genders, and political opinions, religious opinions together. And how we do it, that's what Ayham was explaining with empowerment. We're not helping them. We're not writing their applications, but we teach them where to find help to do so, to learn it themselves. That's what we're aiming for with empowerment. So if you put all this together, IN.DI.E, it's in-D, and in German it means into the music, and it's into the society by music. And there are these workshops we do, educational workshops, but also the very important part of consulting, as Ayham explained. Of course, he had the story himself. Yeah, he's been through the certificate course. You've been to the workshops I provided back then.
Yeah.
And now we're two hands, if I may steal it from you, Ayham. What do you mean with these two hands? Yeah.
Yeah, we are two hands. We work together.
Yeah.
Because one hand you cannot clapping with the one hand. We say it in Arabic. So, but with two hands you can clapping.
Nice.
You can do something.
Nice. So indie music in German means into the music. You know, in English it means independent music is how we would understand that. Which I think also is it works for your project, doesn't it? Independence seems to be something quite important.
Yeah, it sounds nice to be independent, but on the other hand, we're totally dependent from public funding every year. So we're exactly the opposite of being independent, but we're independent in the choices we make. We learn from all the musicians we're in contact with, and we try to be sensitive for their needs. And we're experimenting with new ways how to help them out. If it's a music workshop or if it's just a phone call and a nice talk, because it's a very wide span of what we're doing, between consultation and doing old school music workshops, which was used to be the core of the music academy, the State Music Academy of North Rhine-Westphalia. It was founded for classical Western musicians to improve their skills. And now we're in there. And it starts with ourselves, the change process inside our organization. Ayham is the first guy from Syria in there, which is, of course, a bit unsensitive to point out, but nonetheless, it's very important. We don't mention it every time because we know, especially Ayham knows it, but that's a topic we can reflect upon, and we talk about it together. We're totally sensitive that, of course, just both of us showing up at a political convention, it's politics. Even if we just drink coffee and stand there, it's still politics.
Yeah. You know, as you explain all of this, when I think of the Art27 network, which is a network of organizations, activists, musicians, artists, who are connected through wanting to work for a more inclusive Europe, for a Europe which expands its vision of what European means, which views migration differently, which acknowledges a history of migration. You think of Europe, it's a whole history of migration. It's not a new aspect of Europe that people migrate and new people arrive. This has always been the case. And Europe's culture is influenced through millennia of migration and different art forms arriving from different places and crossing over. And I noticed clearly that in your website, you don't mention the word refugee, I don't think. You mentioned diversity. You mentioned migration within a whole list of what in English you define as kind of construction sites of diversity, that diversity itself is a construction. It's depending on what labels we attach to people is how we view diversity. I believe indie, or certainly Matthias credits you with the phrase IN.DI.E Music Project. Was that very deliberate from your experience, that you wanted to make that big shift away from welcoming refugees, that you wanted this to be something with a different language even to that you were choosing different words and different ways of imagining that relationship?
Yeah, it's a personal experience, because when I came to Germany, I always heard from the older people, "Hey, Flüchtling," that's mean refugee. Yeah, okay, but my name is Ayham. Sorry.
Yeah.
So that's a psychologist. It's not the right way to call me or him refugee, 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 refugee. And if you hear this word every day, every day, every day, just refugee, there is no empowerment anymore. If I say, Chris, you come from Great Britain. Okay, so you're not Chris anymore. You're England.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm Ayham. You're Chris. Nice to meet you. How can we to communicate each other? If I would like to say I'm Ayham, there is a lot of people, 100,000 people like Ayham, musician or in another fields.
Yeah.
So we came to this word. It's not only my words. We meet a nice name, a nice title. So it's something from my personal experience here, and from my experience, I would like to say that the music was the best way to communicate with the other people.
So that's really the for organizations, for institutions. I think this is such an important thing for us to have a chance to discuss, because I can imagine when you arrive in a country, there are challenges which you face, which are different from the challenges of somebody that grew up in a country. There are different challenges, language and qualifications and
Culture shock.
Myself also, I've lived in different countries at different times, and everywhere different. Even places I think are going to be the same, there are differences, of course. So there are specific challenges. But at the same time, you say, yeah, but I also want to be viewed the same. So from an organizational point of view, to support challenges, but at the same time to view people equally, there's a tension there, isn't there? Or there can be a tension.
Yes, of course. It's really difficult to name a group of people without touching their vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Because if you always focus on something that they're missing or what they not are, you always focus on something negative. And that's what we try to avoid. And also the discourse changed, not only in our project, but in others, away from labeling refugees. That's when the new trend term diversity occurred, which takes away the catastrophe background of migration. It's not a catastrophe, it's a thing that happened in all history of mankind. So it's a social construction side which we need to focus on for years and years and years. It's not a fire that needs to be extinguished. It's just another construction site in society, and so it's a social work we need to focus on the same level as focusing on gender issues or age. And that's what this diversity term does with integration.
Yeah. I think a big thing that music can do is to disrupt discourse. We have many opportunities, I think, as musicians and actors in the world to disrupt the discourses that we see are problematic. I absolutely agree with you. And then these changes of language and changes in the title of your program and changes in the dynamic of interaction, it is in itself a disruption, isn't it? It is changing that discourse. Because that's part of what you talked about, Ayham, was actually it was other people's attitudes is really what you were talking about, the way people referred to you. So I see your program coming and trying to maybe help people when they lack resources, if people lack a qualification. But if the system demands a piece of paper, then it takes a long time to change that system. But maybe we can help with the piece of paper, the qualification, which is really important, and the learning and the network and all of those things.
Yeah, we're communicating in so many ways. It's not only about music. I'd love it to be the biggest part of it, but actually it's the smallest part of our work. It's a lot of office work, a lot of talking, a lot of administration. Because if you want to change the system and the people using the system, you can imagine it's a big task and you need different approaches, which includes, of course, administration or consulting politicians. What's the situation like for musicians during the corona pandemic? What's their situation now? What's their situation next year? And what do they need? What can we support and stuff like that? So it's a big task. And changing a system, it always sounds like something that is very discreet or like James Bond, you're changing the system very subtly. No, we're doing this very openly and it's welcomed. we've got a society that welcomes projects like ours, that recognizes the situation of artists at all. So I'm not doing this from a complaining perspective, but we're just using the chances we've got and we've been given, and of course we're asking for it, but it's very openly, and we receive a lot of positive feedback here in North Rhine-Westphalia for our work. But the situation can be totally different in cities in other parts of Germany. So we're doing the start here. We're doing the groundwork and the learning process, and we'd like to share it.
So the instruments that you described at the beginning, Ayham, and some of the other instruments I've heard for your program, are there jobs existing for people who play those instruments, or is it also a case of creating the jobs? For example, as music teachers, if you're an oud player, do you need to create the job of being an oud teacher, or do those positions already exist?
I can talk about my personal experience, for example. I'm a classical guitar teacher, but I'm coming from Syria, and I have another background too from our music or culture music. But how can I find my way here? Because in every country there is a standard, there is a way to find, to make your idea or to reach your goal. But you can do it in 10 years and you can do it in 1 year as a new person here or arrived person here in this community. It was really amazing because with this intensive or with this during this program, we learned a lot about the small details and big details, but it was really rich with reachable with a lot of information. For example, if I want to plan for my workshop, how can I make my workshop from A to Z with a copyright? How to mention, how to call the people? How can I reach my idea? How can to explain my culture or music culture? But the input, the information we came from this program, it was really amazing as a new musician here in this country. How can I plan for my workshop? How can I call or to write a music school? How can to understand that the program it's not a small procedure.
No.
It's really not too complicated, but complicated.
You know, I studied classical guitar too, Ayham. I was a classical guitar student. And if I'd have really stuck to wanting to perform as a classical guitarist for my career, I would have failed. I would not have managed that. So I had to adapt and teach and do different jobs, and now find myself in the job that I find myself in. So that kind of openness and flexibility, I think, is always useful for musicians, isn't it? But if I imagine if I was kind of forced by migration to have to change my career, or I was a performing player but there wasn't an audience for my instrument anymore, that must be incredibly hard to face. Do you come up against that? Really, it would be kind of a psychological affront to me. It would be quite a personal thing for me to be hit with that.
Yeah, no, I can give you an example. It's really a true story. I during our program, I talked with a colleague from me. She's really a wonderful teacher, and she's called me. I have to learn every day something new, but today I became something amazing because we have to do something practically in the music school, and she told me, we talk a lot with the students, we explain a lot, but here in Germany it's not working. So we should to talk a little bit and to communicate more. She's coming from a culture a little bit like my culture or my country, and in our culture we communicate in another way. We talk a lot, we discuss a lot, then we reach our idea.
Yes.
Here in Germany, it's opposite. Small, exact, that's it. Everyone from us has his character, his personal too. How to communicate with the others, with the students too. I have to learn the guitar about 12 years in Syria. And the communication was number one between me and my students and me. And how to communicate with each other. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's to discuss about it. Then we can play and learn something new.
So we're talking about changes in society, really. We're talking about the alumni that you're working with. We're talking about the area that you're working in. Is this happening musically also? And how does this play out musically when we're talking about kind of changes in the way people are interacting? And
I think it changes very rapidly right now, but back then, like 40 years ago, it was all very separated. If I think of for example, the Turkish community here in North Rhine-Westphalia, which is one of the biggest minorities in the state of North Rhine-Westphalia, they had an amazing music culture with the instrument balama in the center of it, which accompanies the singing in microtonal system, which is amazing. And nobody knew 40 years ago in Germany except maybe Turkish people or maybe neighbors of Turkish people.
yeah,
although they might not have known what it was. But today there are music groups like IN.DI.E becoming more and more successful, not only in Germany, but Europe-wide, because the audience developed, becoming more open towards microtonal music. And then we've got all these expert musicians from, for example, like Ayham from Syria, coming here to Germany, and they're experts on their instruments, and they're looking for opportunities to be heard. Yeah, that changes a society, I think. The people coming here being given the chance to be heard or to find a way into the society, to participate, to give something, and not only to receive something. With music, it's an amazing tool to bring them together, to get something new out of it, because it's like a language everybody can relate to or even not relate to. At first, when I heard microtonal music, I thought, okay, they're playing all out of tune. And then I thought, they're all doing that at the same time. I think it's on purpose. Oh, wow, maybe I like it. And it's all these 3 stages you need to go through to find your approach to this music. And that also counts for a society. First, oh, they're there. They're strange. Oh, that's a cool thing, actually. And they're making our society more rich. You know, if it was all Bavarian music and beer drinking, it would work for a while, but it's boring.
I would like to share a piece or a song from a colleague from me from my program to 2019. Christopher Schumacher percussion, Yahya Isa oud, Juan Jose Lama flamenco guitar, Umut Yilmaz zaz, Ilhan Dikman violin.
amazing. The things you've achieved are absolutely incredible. And thank you so much for sharing all of these stories and your vision, and for sharing with the whole network the way that you're working, because I think it's a really important model, a really important way of working that you're describing. And certainly listening to you, I've learned a lot. It's something that I will hold in mind when I'm thinking of the way that I design programs or work with people or interact with anybody, because what you're talking about is a way of working which is applicable always, I think. But when you guys visualize or feel where you've reached now, how does it feel to you? Where do you think you've got to so far with this program?
The picture, where are we right now? I'd like to relate to a story one of our participants in the certificate course once told me down in the castle cellar in Heeg in the Landesmusikakademie at 4 a.m. But it was an amazing story. Eduardo, he allowed me to share it with you. It's a story from his childhood back in Chile. He came here to Germany like 35 years ago, and he told me with his charming Chilean accent in German. You need to imagine the story with his accent. He's a great storyteller. He told me when we were young, we're playing as school kids, like we're 8-9 years old, and we were playing in our village, and there was one night there was this storm down on the sea, and the next day there were things washed ashore, and we wanted to collect them, and all the children we went down to the beach to collect items and interesting stuff. And right there in the turmoil of the waves, there was something waving and being washed ashore right in front of our feet. It turned out to be a penguin. Right in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, a penguin washed ashore right in front us kids. We were all amazed. And we picked up this penguin and we asked, the penguin, where is it from? The penguin. What's a penguin doing here? He always says it's like penguin. And they picked it up, this penguin, and they smuggled it into one of the kids' homes because the parents mustn't find it. And they thought, what are you doing with this penguin? He's so cute. Look at him. He's black and white. It's like he's wearing a suit. Just like the school kids do, like we do in the school. And Chile back then was a dictatorship. And every morning, the pupils gathered across the flag, and they sang the national hymn. And they thought, okay, the penguin, he's one of us. He's wearing a suit. Let's smuggle him into school. And they took the penguin into a bus ride to school. And of course, everyone in the bus was amazed by this penguin, and how did you find it, and how's it coming here? And then they smuggled the penguin into this ceremony in front of the flag, singing the national hymn. But the penguin couldn't stay still, of course. It was inside of one of the jacket of the kids, and it came out. And then the director, she was from the military, and she approached the kids. What is this? What is this? Take it out in front of everybody, right in the morning, in front of 200 pupils. And Eduardo, he put the penguin on the floor, and she said, "Oh my God, it's a penguin! It's beautiful." And then she was happy, and she was known as the strictest person in school. And now she was happy. Oh, it's so cute, it's a penguin. And then they changed lessons for this day. They changed lessons to learn about penguins in the Arctic. And the director of the school, she took the penguin and gave it to the military, to the Marine, and they brought it back. They brought the penguin somewhere safe. And that's the story from now. But Eduardo added that there was this revolution back in 2006 in Chile, and it was called La Revolución de los Pingüines. Why? Because the nickname for pupils in Chile is penguines, because they wear a suit, just like a penguin. And there was the Students and Pupils Revolution in 2006. And that's the whole picture. If we transfer it to our project, to our situation in North Rhine-Westphalia, I think the penguin has already been washed ashore and he's been found. Yeah, and maybe he's in the school right now, getting to know the directors, the other pupils, and maybe he's changing the program already in the school. I think that's where we are. Not yet safe, but right in the middle of the process.
Ayham, Matthias, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
ReSounding is brought to you by the Art27 Network, a network of like-minded initiatives using art and culture to respond to the ongoing crisis of displacement of human beings in Europe and around the world. To find out more and to join our growing network, you can visit our website, art27.art, or follow us on Facebook at Art27. This podcast was produced and edited by Ed Holland. The theme tune was written by Matteo Gallesi in collaboration with Synca. Thank you for listening.